Chapter 210. A bomb exploded in Gu Mingming's head and she stood up abruptly. Oh no. Sandy. Elvis was shocked by her sudden action and he immediately pressed her back onto the beast skin, praying mad in amusement, although compared to the rainy season, the food during winter is much lesser. But compared to the previous years, this year's situation is already very good. So don't worry, Sandy's partners should be fine. Gu Mengmeng was anxious but she could not break free from Elvis's embrace, so she could only scrunch up her face into a bun and say, "Who's worried about them? I'm just worried that they might eat Sandy up because they don't have enough to eat." Ah, it must be so, that's why they fed Sandy till she became so fat. This stupid Sandy, still eating so much all day long, what should we do? Elvis was stunned again and only realized what Gu Mengmeng was worried about after a while. He used his finger to knock on her forehead heavily. Seeing her holding her forehead in pain and glaring at him, Elvis then said helplessly, "I really want to know, what exactly is in your little head?" Gu Mengmeng pouted and to express her protest, she decided to ignore Elvis. Elvis sighed and gently removed her little hand that was covering her forehead. Then, he used his large hand to cover the red mark on her forehead and continued with a pained and helpless tone, "Males will never hurt their own females. No matter how hungry they will never treat their own females as food. On the contrary, they are highly likely to commit suicide when their females are hungry and they are unable to get any food, using themselves as food to prolong their female's life." Gu Mengmeng was stunned by his words. F*******. Such a heavy taste. Eat her own husband. Sandy. Elvis held on to Gu Mingming's little hand and continued, "Sandy is a bear, she basically sleeps during winter and rarely eats anything. So in her cave, there has never been a precedent of a male being treated as food." Hearing Elvis's words, Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief. If she heard any terrifying news, she really did not know how she would face Sandy in the future. Thinking about this, Gu Mengmeng suddenly recalled something. She tilted her head and asked Elvis, "So, a while ago, Barit said he wanted to come over to our place during winter out of the blue. It was because..." Elvis nodded and said, "I want to give him to you as reserve food." Gu Mengmeng felt stifled. How blind were the males in this beast world towards love? Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's chin and said with a straight face, "I rejected him because I feel that it's enough to have me as your reserve food." Gu Mengmeng waved her hands and said, Don't we have a lot of salted meat and fish to make? Don't we also have a lot of potatoes and sweet potatoes? There are so many things to eat. Can we not eat people? I really can't do such a hardcore thing." But Elvis replied calmly, "I am a wolf." Gu Mengmeng held her forehead, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. She had never seen a second person like Elvis who strongly recommended others to eat him up. Gu Mengmeng sighed and held on to Elvis's hands with both of her hands. She looked into his eyes seriously and replied, "No one would use their own husky to make dog meat hot pot, and no one would use their own wolf as reserve food. This is really not something humans would do. We have a lot of things to eat, can we not write our names on the menu?" Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling Hamura from Shaoxiang Academy for giving 2 comment votes, and thank you to the little darling Hanshi Jianlu from QQ Reading for tipping 100 reading points. Chapter 211. Elvis held on to Gu Mengmeng lovingly and rubbed her little head with his chin. He then said softly, "If you say you don't want to eat, then don't eat. If one day you want to eat." Gu Mengmeng hurriedly shook her head and said, No, I won't eat my friends even if I starve to death." "Friends?" Elvis tilted his head and looked into Gu Mengmeng's eyes. He asked, "The kind of friends that you can care about, hug and kiss?" Gu Mengmeng choked on her own saliva. Damn, how could he still remember this joke? "Hey, don't look at me with that face of anticipation. How can I say no when you look at me like this?" Gu Mengmeng bit the bullet and nodded her head in the end. Feeling a little guilty, Elvis's smile instantly bloomed. He used one hand to support Gu Mingming's chin and brought it to his lips gently. The tip of his nose rubbed against Gu Mingming's little nose. Elvis said with a slightly hoarse voice, "This day, I have waited for so long." With that, he kissed Gu Mingming's lips deeply. Gu Mingming's brain was like Hiroshima after World War II. Her ears were filled with the echoes of the atomic bomb. Her brain was filled with paste and she could not form an accurate thought. She should have rejected him, right? She should have told him that she did not mean it that way. But towards Elvis's kiss, she actually did not feel repulsed. Instead, she even felt a little enjoyment. Gu Mengmeng slowly closed her eyes and allowed Elvis to do whatever he wanted from her mouth. Her brain could not think, but her heart had never thought through something so clearly before. After leaving Leah, she jumped across a lake out of hurt feelings and wanted to return to the modern world from there. This method obviously did not work, but she did not think of any other way to return. Instead, she started to bring everyone to marinate meat and find potatoes to prepare for winter. Initially, she thought she was just finding a reason to numb herself so that she would not face the pain of being heartbroken. But, was it really like that? She was not a fool. How could she not know what kind of attitude Elvis was using to take care of her? She clearly knew how the beast world viewed relationships, but she still accepted Elvis's care with a clear conscience, didn't she? She knew that the mountains would be sealed by snow during the cold winter and she would be staying in the same cave with Elvis for the entire winter. It was highly possible that something would happen between them. Could she say that she did not expect it? Just like this kiss, was it a surprise? Accident? But, she didn't dare to say that she had never looked forward to it. Gu Mengmeng slowly wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and started to cater to his kiss. This small act rewarded Elvis, making him even more fearless. Elvis pushed Gu Mengmeng onto the ground and before her head hit the ground, he placed his hand under her head to prevent her from getting hurt. He let go of her moist and plump lips and turned to kiss her earlobe. His breathing was rapid and heavy against her ear, making her body restless. Gu Mengmeng could feel her body changing, but the last bit of rationality she had left made her ask a question. Even though it would spoil the mood, she knew she would regret it if she did not ask. Biting her lower lip, Gu Mengmeng asked in a voice that was close to a moan, "If I say I'm not willing to mate now, will you force me or leave me like Leah?" Out of topic, thank you to Xiaosheng Academy's little darling, Wangsheng99, for the flowers and comments. Then. Chapter 212. Elvis's body froze for a moment before he remained silent for a long time. Other than the crackling sounds of the firewood burning, the entire cave was so quiet that only their breathing and heartbeats could be heard. Gu Mengmeng looked straight into Elvis's blue eyes without avoiding or saying a word. She wanted to know the answer or else she could not hand herself over just like that. Elvis took a deep breath and stood up from Gu Mengmeng's body with much difficulty. He helped her up and then rearranged the beast skin on her body to wrap her up. He did not say a word and just silently turned around to walk to the entrance of the cave. The entrance of the cave was indeed as Elvis had said, it was already sealed by the snow, but it was not very solid. He threw a punch at it and the snow sealing the entrance scattered in all directions. He transformed into a wolf and stood at the entrance of the cave, facing the cold wind with his back facing the entrance like a statue in the fierce cold wind. Gu Mengmeng just looked at Elvis quietly and laughed bitterly at herself. So this was his answer. If she was not willing to mate with him, he had to leave her too. Was he going to leave her alone in this cold cave in this cold winter and let her fend for herself? Gu Mengmeng wrapped the beast skin tighter around herself and stared at the fire pit in front of her. Tears started to drip down her cheeks. She did not know why she was crying. She just felt extremely aggrieved and uncomfortable. "Why are you crying?" Elvis's voice rang above her head. He frowned and carried Gu Mengmeng up with a pained expression. He wiped away her tears carefully and coaxed her, "Did I scare you? Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I won't force you to do something you don't want. I will wait until you are willing." Gu Mingming's nose turned sour and she cried even harder. She hugged onto Elvis's neck and sobbed, "I thought you had left and abandoned me." Elvis was taken aback. He never thought that one day she would cry because of his departure. His smile was a little bitter but also a little blissful. Combined on his face, there was an indescribable helplessness. "I just went to get some air to calm myself down. How could I leave you alone? You are my Xiao Meng." Yes, Gu Mengmeng had never dated before in Leah, but even if she had never seen a pig run, she should have eaten pork before. There were so many web novels in the modern world and they were practically a comprehensive guide to sex education. She naturally understood what Elvis meant by peace. So she blushed and wiped away her tears. Sniffling, she asked, "I don't want to mate. You won't leave me. I will wait until you are willing." Elvis wiped away Gu Mingming's tears gently, then hugged her in his arms. It was hard to tell if he was comforting Gu Mengmeng or using this method to comfort himself. Gu Mengmeng nestled in Elvis's arms and listened to his heartbeat. She felt strangely at ease. Biting her finger, Gu Mengmeng asked softly, "What if he doesn't come? What do you plan to do if I don't want to mate?" "Then I'll wait, I'll wait. As long as you don't leave me, I don't care about anything else." Elvis's voice was very calm and light. It did not sound like the sweet nothings that guys usually use to coax girls into bed. Instead, it was a voice that came from the bottom of his heart. It was convincing and calming. Gu Mengmeng took a deep breath, looked up and kissed Elvis's chin. She squinted her eyes and said, "Elvis, I think I might like you. Aside from the topic." Chapter 213. The power of this sentence was really comparable to the atomic bomb that bombed Hiroshima back then, instantly shattering Elvis's rationality into smithereens. He lowered his head with a stiff neck, looking at the blushing little person in his arms. Her eyes that had been crying just now were like the sky that had been washed by water, clear and clean. She just raised her little face to look at him, calling out his name. He thought that he would never hear this sentence in his entire life. Elvis felt elated and blissful. He felt that all the beautiful words in this world were not enough to describe his current feelings. He hugged Gu Mengmeng tightly in his arms, and after a long while, he finally said, "Thank you." Gu Mengmeng rubbed her little head against Elvis's chest, trying to find a comfortable angle. She curled her lips and muttered, "What are you thanking me for, silly? Thank you for being willing to stay in Saint Nazaire. Thank you for letting me take care of you. Thank you for liking me." Elvis felt a breath slowly being released from his chest. Previously, it had been pressing against his chest, so he did not feel any discomfort. But now that it was released, he really felt his entire body become comfortable. "Xiao Meng, are you hungry? Do you want me to get something for you to eat?" Elvis stroked Gu Mingming's back gently and asked. "Ugh. I don't feel like eating." Gu Mengmeng closed her eyes, feeling that her eyes were a little dry and stinging. Her head was also dizzy and she really wanted to sleep for a while. Elvis sensed Gu Mingming's abnormality and used his hand to caress her little face. He realized that the blush on her face was not because of shyness, but because she was having a fever. Elvis instantly became anxious and patted Gu Mingming's little face lightly. Xiao Meng, don't sleep first, don't sleep all right." Gu Mengmeng was extremely dissatisfied with Elvis's behavior of not letting her sleep. She wanted to scold him but could not muster up any energy. She just whimpered and turned her head, hanging back into Elvis's arms and curling into a ball, just like a puppy that had not been weaned yet acting coquettishly in its mother's arms. Elvis was extremely vexed. He must have caught a cold when he brought Gu Mengmeng out to play in the snow just now. After returning to the cave, He immediately warmed himself by the fire and even wrapped a lot of beast skin to warm himself up. Then, he kissed her uncontrollably and the beast skin wrapped around her fell off unknowingly. After that, he even broke apart the snow blocking the entrance of the cave to get some fresh air. The cold wind rushed into the cave and froze her again. Elvis really wanted to kill himself. Because of his negligence, Xiao Meng had fallen sick. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. I'll get Leia. She'll be fine. Even Elvis himself did not know if he was comforting Gu Mengmeng or himself with his words. He wanted to place Gu Mengmeng by the fire pit and look for Leia. But Gu Mengmeng hugged onto Elvis's waist tightly and refused to let go. When he wanted to pull away, she would whimper and look like she was about to cry. Elvis panicked and coaxed Gu Mengmeng, "Be good, wait for me for a while, just a while." But Gu Mengmeng pressed her little face against Elvis's chest, frowning and whining, "Don't abandon me, don't abandon me. I beg you." Elvis was at his wit's end. He could not carry Gu Mengmeng who was having a high fever and dash out, nor could he forcefully pull her down from his body. If it was any other time, he could still howl in the cave to send a message to Leia. But it just so happened that the snow had sealed off the mountain. Even if his voice could pass through the snow at the entrance of the cave, it would be drowned out by the sound of the wind. What to do, what to do? Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Xiaoxiang Academy, W. Mumu, for her 2 recommendation votes. Susu, Elvis, don't be anxious. Let me give you an idea. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng, his blue eyes sweeping sharply at the innocent Susu. Speak. Susu, don't stare at me. If you stare at me, I'll be so scared that I'll forget everything. Elvis clenched his teeth and closed his eyes. Speak quickly. Susu shrugged helplessly and smiled evilly. Do you know why people will rub their hands when they're cold? Elvis shook his head impatiently. Susu said with a look of disdain, sigh, it's really unwise to bring a little pure male lead. There's a communication barrier. Elvis suddenly opened his eyes and glared at her. Susu shrunk her neck timidly and smiled obsequiously. Don't be angry, don't be angry. It's like this, there's a term called friction warmth, understand? Elvis frowned, clearly not understanding. Chapter 2:14. Elvis touched Gu Mengmeng's burning hot body. This fever came in a threatening manner and to Elvis, it was the most difficult battle. He was so anxious that he kept asking himself, what should I do? What should I do? His eyes scanned the cave continuously, searching for anything that could make Gu Mengmeng better. Potato. No, Xiao Meng said before, potato was a divine dish that could go with anything and was used to stew meat. Sweet potato. No, that's not right either. Xiao Meng said sweet potato was the main food and she would not feel hungry after eating it. Preserved meat. That doesn't seem right either. Dried fish. No, dried fish is not right too. Wait a minute. Dried fish, seems like it could work. Elvis suddenly recalled that the last time Gu Mengmeng jumped into the lake and caught a cold, he used beast language to send a message to Leia on the way back to the cave. That day, Leia asked Sandy to send a pot of fish stew over. Fish. Elvis took a piece of beast skin and secured Gu Mengmeng in his arms. He looked a little comical, like a village woman tying her child with a red cloth and carrying her child to do farm work. But he tied Gu Mengmeng in his arms because the temperature of his abdomen was relatively higher and softer, so Gu Mengmeng could sleep more comfortably. After securing Gu Mengmeng, Elvis hurried to the depths of the cave to retrieve the dried fish that Gu Mengmeng had dried. These dried fish had already been processed, so they could be eaten directly with their teeth. Elvis was not sure if the preserved dried fish would have the same effect, but he had no better idea now. He threw 2 large pieces of dried fish into the stone pot that was boiling with snow water. The water was already boiling and giving off steam. When the 2 large pieces of ice-cold fish were thrown in, the bubbles instantly disappeared. Elvis ignored it and started walking deeper into the cave. Ginger. He remembered that Gu Meng Meng called that thing ginger. Leah had asked Sandy to use this thing to stew fish for Gu Meng Meng. Elvis looked at the pile of ginger that Leah had sent over the day before the winter and hesitated with a frown. How much should he put? Gu Mingming's face was getting redder and redder in his arms, looking like she was in pain. She must be seriously ill. Let's put a little more in. With that thought in mind, Elvis's 2 hands that could easily grab a basketball reached into the pile of ginger and grabbed 2 big handfuls of ginger before returning to the bonfire. He threw the whole ginger into the pot until there was no more, and the boiling water flowed out of the pot. Only when the fire sizzled did he stop. Then, he patted Gu Meng Meng, who was in his arms, while staring anxiously at the pot of medicine filled with ginger and dried fish. Elvis did not know how much this thing should be cooked to be considered good, but the smell of ginger was getting stronger and there was even a strange smell. Yeah, if Elvis had cooked before, he would know that this smell was burnt. After persevering for a while, Elvis saw that the pot was starting to emit black smoke and the bottom of the pot was emitting a strange sound. Nodding his head, Elvis was sure that this was a sign that the medicine was ready. So, he took the pot down from the fire. Even if his hands were burning in pain, he did not care at all. He placed the medicine at the side steadily, then used a small spoon to scoop something that he could not tell if it was ginger or fish and send it to Gu Mingming's mouth. He coaxed her as gently as he could, "Xiao Meng, be good, open your mouth and eat the medicine. Then, you won't feel so bad anymore." Aside from the topic, thank you to the little baby from Xiaoxiang Academy, Gu Guang HH, for the rating tickets. Thank you very much then. Sometimes, I really doubt if I am Elvis's real mother. It was obvious that Elvis was extremely anxious in this chapter, but I just wanted to laugh for some reason. What should I do? Also, the little baby protested to me, saying that the atmosphere in the first 2 chapters was so good, why did it suddenly stop? I even took off my pants and I just let you guys see this. Yeah, I was purposely torturing them, so what? Chapter 2:15. She had to admit that Elvis's medicine was very effective. At least Gu Meng Meng, who had a high fever and almost fainted, was successfully woken up by this medicine after 2 hours of muddle-headedness. She turned her head and vomited without saying anything. She only stopped vomiting until her bile came out and there was nothing left to vomit. Her eyes were watery because of the intense vomiting. She looked at Elvis's concerned and helpless look and tried her best to curl the corners of her lips. She smiled and said, "It's just a fever, don't be nervous, it's fine." What should I do? Elvis held Gu Mingming's little face and asked seriously. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the pot of mysterious objects and then at her vomit. She said, "Get rid of all these things first, or else we will suffocate to death in this cave." Elvis did not dare to be negligent. He placed Gu Mengmeng beside the fire, where there was a bed made by Gu Mengmeng. Although it was called a bed, it was actually just 2 huge pieces of wood. The middle seam of the wood was aligned and pieced together, and many beast skins were laid on top of it. As the fire had been lit for quite a while, the beast skin on the bed was roasted until it was warm. The moment Gu Mengmeng entered the bed, she felt a wave of comfort wash over her body and the pain lessened by quite a bit. However, sleepiness struck her again. She was afraid that Elvis would worry for nothing if he saw her sleeping. She did not know what kind of dark cuisine he would cook, so she forced herself to stay awake and watched as Elvis carefully brought the pot of things to the entrance of the cave. He dug a hole at the bottom right corner of the snow door that sealed the entrance. After hesitating for a moment, he threw all the ginger in the pot into that hole, while the fish picked it up and ate it by itself. Gu Mengmeng asked, "Why are you eating that? Aren't you afraid of getting a stomachache?" Elvis used the snow he dug to wash the pot and replied, Food during winter is too precious, it's a pity to throw it away. Gu Meng Meng smiled. Aren't there still a lot of it in the cave? It looks like it should be enough for us to eat for the entire winter. You don't have to be so strapped. Elvis filled the cleaned pot with clean snow and placed it on the fire to boil water again. Then, he dug a large piece of snow to clean up her vomit. As he cleaned up, he replied, "That food is to ensure that you won't go hungry this winter. I can't eat it unless I have no other choice." Gu Meng Meng was a little taken aback and asked, "What do you mean by having no other choice?" Elvis buried Gu Meng Meng's vomit into the snow hole at the bottom right of the hole, then used new snow to cover the hole. After settling everything, he dug out some snow to wash his hands before returning to the fire pit. He leaned closer to the fire pit, drying his palms and body before hugging her. The orange-red flames illuminated Elvis's silhouette, making him look very gentle and comforting. He turned around and smiled at Gu Meng Meng, who was lying on the bed and looking at him, before replying, "The situation where I will starve to death if I don't eat is called a last resort." Gu Meng Meng asked, "What you mean is, unless you're about to starve to death, otherwise all the food in this cave is for me to eat?" Elvis nodded his head seriously. Gu Meng Meng did not know whether to laugh or cry. She stretched her hand out from the beast's skin and gestured for Elvis to come over. Elvis sat by the bed and used his freshly warmed hand to hold her little hand. He gently tidied the stray hairs stuck to her forehead due to her sweat. His blue eyes were filled with heartache. Aside from the topic, if nothing goes wrong, this article will be published in January. So my babies, don't save too many articles and finish reading as soon as possible. Otherwise, the content you see now will all be charged in the future. Chapter 2:16. Gu Meng Meng held on to Elvis's hand. Although she was feeling very uncomfortable, she felt an unprecedented sense of ease and comfort in her heart. Elvis gave her a sense of security that she had never experienced before, and this feeling fascinated her. "I originally prepared these things according to the amount for 2 people. So you don't have to worry that I will starve just because you eat them." Gu Meng Meng placed Elvis's hand on her face. Although his hand had been roasted, it was still cooler than her face, which was burning with a high fever. Gu Meng Meng felt that her face was not so hot after being placed on by his hand. She felt more relaxed and continued, "Moreover, if you don't eat and I fall sick again, how will you have the energy to take care of me? Right?" Elvis's heart ached when he saw Gu Meng Meng forcing herself to talk to him. He could hear how uncomfortable her throat was, but she was still worried about whether she could eat or not. This made him feel warm and guilty at the same time. If he could store more food, Xiao Meng would not have to worry about these things. This time, it resulted in Elvis hunting crazily a month before every winter. He would not feel at ease if he did not fill the cave with food. Of course, this was a story for the future. Let's not talk about it now. Elvis placed his other hand on Gu Meng Meng's little face and held her little head with both hands, as if he was holding the most precious treasure in the world. He asked carefully, "Tell me, how can I make you feel better?" Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis. Gu Meng Meng used her chin to point at the stone pot that was boiling snow. She said, "Drinking more hot water is a universal remedy. At my place, all guys know that drinking more hot water will cure all illnesses." This was indeed a joke. Under normal circumstances, guys who told girls to drink more hot water would either go from having a girlfriend to not having one, or go from not having a girlfriend to never having one. This was obviously an answer that would be shot at. But for a cold and fever, as well as Gu Meng Meng's current medical resources, this was the best remedy. Elvis looked at the pot and confirmed again, "Just drinking hot water will do." Gu Meng Meng nodded. Smelling the ginger scent in the air, she added, "Put 2 slices of ginger in and boil it. The effect will be better." Elvis nodded, then retracted his hand and walked into the depths of the cave. He took out 2 handfuls of ginger eyes and was about to throw them into the pot. Wait! Gu Mengmeng reached out her Kong hand to stop him. Her eyebrows twitched as she asked, "Are you trying to kill me with the spiciness?" Elvis was at a loss as he looked at Gu Mengmeng helplessly. Gu Mengmeng propped herself up and sat up. She pointed at the ginger in Elvis's hand and said, "Just take 1 piece and put the rest aside." Elvis did as he was told and picked the biggest piece. Then, he looked at Gu Mengmeng and was about to throw it into the pot. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed and said helplessly, "Give me the ginger in your hand." Elvis probably realized that he must have done something wrong, so he did not say anything and just walked to Gu Mengmeng's bedside with the ginger, passing it to her. Chapter 217. A pot of ginger water was quickly cooked and Elvis scooped a small bowl for Gu Mengmeng to drink. After Gu Mengmeng drank a bowl of ginger water, she felt much more comfortable. She pushed the bowl to Elvis, letting him drink a bowl to warm his body. Elvis was a little hesitant. This was Gu Mengmeng's medicine. How could he eat it? Gu Mengmeng smiled. These 2 pieces of ginger could be boiled for an entire day. She just had to throw some snow into the pot after drinking it. Gu Mengmeng guaranteed again and again that the ginger in the cave was enough for her to use for an entire winter. Only then did Elvis reluctantly drink a bowl. This was the sweetest thing he had ever tasted in the world. A sense of bliss spread throughout his body. After drinking the ginger water, Gu Mengmeng fell into a deep sleep once again. In her dreams, she felt that she had returned to her university dormitory bed. The white furry bear at the head of the bed was smiling at her. She hugged the big bear in her arms and rubbed her face against its fur. Satisfied, she rode on the big bear and fell asleep. But the reality was that Elvis was originally sitting at the side of the bed, but was pulled onto the bed by Gu Mengmeng with his beast-skin dress. His beast-skin dress was torn off by her, while his naked body was ridden in her arms. His entire body was so stiff that he did not dare to move, afraid that he would make her feel uncomfortable in her sleep. The cave was dark. There was almost no trace of time in this cave. The snow sealed the entrance of the cave so tightly that Gu Mengmeng and Elvis did not even know whether it was night or day outside. Gu Mengmeng did not know how long she had slept, but when she opened her eyes again, her fever had subsided, and she was lying on Elvis's body like an octopus in a hooligan position. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while, would it be less awkward if she screamed and retracted her hand, then put the blame on him instead? The answer was obviously no. There were still a few months left for her to be alone with Elvis. If she gave such a reaction now, it would probably be even more awkward in the future. So should she hug him in her arms like how Princess Janning slept with Wei Xiaobao and say, "From today onwards, you are mine, I will treat you well"? She sized up Elvis's physique. Yeah, it's a little difficult to hug him. Just when Gu Mengmeng was in a dilemma as to what kind of attitude she should take to face this awkward situation, Elvis spoke first. "Are you thirsty? I'll get you a bowl of ginger soup." Oh, all right. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head, her eyes darting around awkwardly, not daring to look at Elvis. Elvis kissed her forehead and said, "You have to let go of me first before I can scoop the soup for you." Gu Mengmeng then realized that she was still stuck to Elvis's body, so she bounced back as if she was electrocuted and wrapped herself tightly with the beast skin. Gu Mengmeng cleared her throat and laughed dryly. "I don't sleep well, especially when I have a fever. My brain is in a mess from the fever. I'm not like this usually, really." Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng and said, "I don't sleep well, especially when I have a fever." Elvis walked back with the soup and blew on it to cool it down before sending it to Gu Mengmeng's mouth. He smiled warmly and did not say a word. Chapter 218. Gu Mengmeng almost choked to death on her own saliva. She looked at Elvis sadly and thought to herself, "Your words are not comforting me at all right?" Elvis touched Gu Mengmeng's face and slowly heaved a sigh of relief. "It's not burning anymore, that's great." Elvis's relieved look warmed Gu Mingming's heart. So this was how it felt to be treasured and cared for by someone. The fire in the cave had long been extinguished. Gu Mengmeng sat up from her blankets and could not help but shiver. She felt a little cold. Just as she was about to crawl back into the blankets, Elvis had already carried her in his arms. The blankets won't be warm after being lifted. You can't catch a cold again, it's better if I carry you. Elvis said as he took a piece of wood from the side and started a new fire. Are you hungry? I'll cook for you. Once Elvis said that, Gu Mingming's blood instantly boiled and she said agitatedly as if she was injected with chicken blood, no, calm down, don't try to cook anymore. Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng as if the pause button had been pressed. They were too close and Gu Mengmeng felt immense pressure from his stare. She blinked and said, what I mean is, leave such small matters like cooking to me in the future and don't do it yourself. Elvis sat down with his legs crossed and said formally, females should be taken care of and shouldn't be involved in such matters. Gu Mengmeng gave a bitter smile helplessly and poked Elvis's head, saying, how exactly did you establish this feudalistic mentality of valuing females over males? It died out early in the morning and now it's the era of equality between males and females, understand? Elvis shook his head honestly and his serious face made Gu Mengmeng lose her temper. She sighed and said, it's very tiring for a person to take care of another person unilaterally. So? Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis with an enticing and expectant gaze, indicating for him to continue her sentence. Elvis pursed his lips and seemed to be struggling for a while. Then, he looked at the entrance of the cave which was sealed by the snow and said slowly, so, you should have two partners. If Leah is also here. Gu Mingming's face darkened and she raised her hand to make a stop gesture. She said unhappily, Leah has already decided to be with Nina. He might be busy giving birth to little Leah now. I can't possibly go to Nina's bed and snatch her away just because I lack a cook, right? Moreover, you've also seen Lee's attitude towards me now. Gu Mengmeng felt suffocated and she hammered her own chest with force. She forced herself to calm down before continuing, it was not easy for me to let him go, can you not mention him anymore? Elvis remained silent and lowered his head. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the pile of yellow roots at the side of the cave. Wasn't that Li's attitude towards Xiaomeng? Gu Mengmeng felt that she had gone overboard in reprimanding Elvis, so she calmed herself down and stood up from Elvis's arms. She wrapped the beast skin around her even tighter and sniffed her slightly clogged nose before saying, isn't it just cooking, I'm very good at it. Next time you go hunting, I'll cook. This is called the male takes care of the outside while the female takes care of the inside. Although at my place, female takes care of the inside is already a thing of the past, but considering the actual situation here and my own condition, I've decided to give up the right to be a strong woman. I'll just stay at home and be a housewife. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little darling from Shaoxiang Academy, Shengxianya, for your comments. Wen has always maintained 5 stars, I'm so happy, and thank you to the little darling from QQ Reading, don't lose and don't forget asterisk, for her tips. Recently, the most frequently asked questions in the comments, 1. Author, will you give up? Answer, the author is a good scammer. No one even read the last article and I persevered to finish writing 1,000,000 words. Moreover, this article is going to be published in January. Before it's published, I have to sign a contract with the website. If I give up, I'll face a lawsuit. Most importantly, my great editor is always holding a kitchen knife and a small leather whip and staring deeply at me. I have no doubt that if I dare to give up, she will chop me into a human meat bun. 2. Why are there fewer updates recently? Chapter 219. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng along with the beast skin again and said, the ground is cold. Gu Mengmeng did not resist, the ground was quite cold. I don't know what equality the males and females in your world are pursuing, I only know that my female cannot be wronged. You cannot have less of what others have. At least what Bode and the rest did for Sandy, I will do the same for you. I want you to be the object of everyone's envy forever. Because you are the messenger of Saint Nazir's beast deity, and more importantly, because you are my female. Gu Mingming's little heart was thumping non-stop. She cupped her hands and looked at Elvis with an intoxicated expression, asking, "Are you still the husky that eats raw potatoes? What's with this domineering CEO style? Did you secretly read romance novels behind my back?" Gu Mingming's current expression was exactly the same as when they first met, and this was Elvis's favorite expression. The corners of his lips curled up and Elvis lightly planted a kiss on Gu Mingming's forehead, saying gently, "Be good and stay in my arms. You talk and I do the cooking, it's considered cooperation." Gu Mingming thought about it. She really did not want to reach out to dig the snow that sealed the entrance of the cave to wash the vegetables, so she smiled unkindly and said, "Then you should heat up the snow before washing the vegetables, or else it'll be too cold." Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's furry little head and said, "Silly girl, I'm a wolf, I'm not afraid of the cold." Gu Mingming hung onto Elvis's neck like a little monkey, her little hands caressing his pectoral muscles restlessly. She pondered seriously for a long time but still could not figure it out, so she asked Elvis shamelessly, "You don't have any fur after you transform into a human, aren't you afraid of the cold?" Elvis was a little embarrassed to ask, "You don't have any fur after you transform, aren't you afraid of the cold?" Elvis shook his head and answered, "My fur didn't disappear, I just can't see it anymore, it doesn't affect the warmth, so you don't have to worry." Gu Mingming gave him a thumbs up and exclaimed from the bottom of her heart, "Awesome." Under Gu Mingming's instructions, Elvis barely made a pot of food that could be swallowed. Actually, even though Elvis was the one who made it, Gu Mingming was still the one in charge of the cooking, while Elvis only washed the vegetables and cut the potatoes. He could only be considered as an assistant. It couldn't be helped. His cooking talent had already broken through the sky, and he could cook anything into a dark cuisine. The pot of black stewed fish with ginger and the rabbit that had been roasted into a tire had left a lingering fear in her heart. She really did not have the courage to try again. After they were full, Elvis placed Gu Mingming back into the warm blanket, then washed the pot and boiled another pot of ginger water. This was the only recipe he had mastered so far. A pot of water, 2 slices of ginger, cook for a day. Gu Mingming patted the side of the bed, signaling Elvis to come up and sleep with her. After Elvis warmed himself up, he laid down beside her and used his arm as a pillow under her head. He lowered his head and quietly watched her fall into a deep sleep. Gu Mingming, who was in his arms, slept peacefully like a child. She was defenseless and peaceful. His long eyelashes formed a silhouette under his eyes, and his even breathing was hotter than usual, presumably because he had not recovered from his cold. Her warm breath landed on Elvis's chest, and waves of numbness spread throughout his entire body. His nostrils were filled with the sweet scent of her body. She was clearly as quiet as an angel, but Elvis could not help but have some kind of reaction. Aside from the topic, thank you to Xiaoxiang's baby, Big Banyan Tree, for your recommendation vote. Then, what am I going to write in the next section? Are you guys mentally prepared? Chapter 220. Elvis's breathing became heavier. The strange changes in his body made Elvis very uneasy. He felt that something was stirring in his blood. He instinctively wanted to turn around and press Gu Mingming down to bully her fiercely. But this little one was still sick and he could not bear to disturb her sleep. Moreover, he remembered. She said, she doesn't want to mate. Elvis tried his best to control his own emotions. He wanted to stop himself from letting his imagination run wild. But Gu Mingming was in his arms and there was really nothing else in this cave that could divert his attention. He suddenly could not remember how he spent those long years before he met Gu Mingming. Lowering his head, Elvis placed his lips on Gu Mingming's forehead and kissed her carefully. He had clearly done this countless times when she was awake. And it was done openly and naturally. He was very sure that Gu Mengmeng did not reject this kind of kiss. But at this moment, because of this little stolen kiss, his heart was surging and he could not control himself. His blood was boiling in his body and Elvis could feel it. After this kiss, his blood was like the boiling ginger water in a pot. That heat almost evaporated his entire body. Elvis frowned. He had wanted to make use of this smell to satisfy himself. But now, it seemed like he had outsmarted himself. Not only did the fire in his heart not weaken, it burned even more vigorously. It had become the flame devil in his spiritual world and he could not resist it at all. Gu Mengmeng moaned unknowingly. She was unhappy that her sleep was disturbed. She pushed away the thing poking at the top of her knees in protest. But that unknown thing stubbornly bounced back to its original position. It was even more panicky than before. Gu Mengmeng twisted her body. She wanted to find a comfortable angle to avoid that annoying thing and continue sleeping. But she did not know what kind of torture her unconscious movement was to Elvis. The feeling of exploding on the spot. So this was what it felt like. Gu Mengmeng realized that no matter how she adjusted her position, she could not avoid that thing that was hindering her sleep. She moaned even louder. Her eyebrows were squeezed together and she looked like she was about to cry but could not. It was as if she was playing the song Ambush from 10 Sides on Elvis's already tensed nerves. Elvis used his hands to hold Gu Mengmeng in place, not allowing her to continue provoking the fire in his heart. He said in a low, hoarse voice, "Stop fooling around, I don't want to break my promise to you." Gu Mengmeng replied in a daze. Elvis took a deep breath and looked at Gu Mengmeng, who was obviously still asleep with her eyes closed. He said as if he was talking to himself, "I promised you that I will only pledge my loyalty to you when you are willing to mate with me. I want to keep every promise I made to you, so, stop pestering me, go to sleep, and stop messing around." Gu Mengmeng did not know if she understood Elvis's words, but she gradually quietened down. But even if she did not move at all and fell asleep like a porcelain doll, her allure to Elvis did not diminish at all. He desperately wanted to have her, so he hugged her even tighter and pulled the distance between them infinitely closer until it was negative. Elvis knew that he should shatter the snow blocking the entrance with one punch, then go out to cool down in the cold wind. But he also knew that Xiao Meng could not be left out in the cold anymore. Moreover, he could not bear to let go of her. This kind of torment seemed to have made him addicted and he was willing to sink into it. Digression, once again, I feel that I am not her biological mother. Chapter 221. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had fallen asleep, Elvis was afraid that she would feel uncomfortable being pinned down by him, so he slowly let go of his hand. But the moment he let go, Gu Mengmeng seemed to be even more dissatisfied. She frowned and whimpered before snuggling into his arms again. But this time, the thing that was pressing against Gu Mengmeng's thigh was obstructing her sleep again. Gu Mengmeng was extremely annoyed. She closed her eyes and reached her hand down to touch it, wanting to see what demon was so daring as to disturb her sleep. Her fair and soft little hand covered Elvis's sensitive nerve endings. Every inch of touch was magnified countless times. Elvis groaned, clenching his teeth to suppress his desire. He arched his back, trying to break free from Gu Mengmeng's demonic grasp. But Gu Mengmeng had not figured out what was obstructing her sleep, so how could she let go? Seeing that the demon was about to escape, her little hand exerted force and grabbed him tightly, holding him in her hand tightly. Gu Mengmeng snickered in her sleep, "Little guy, even if you are Sun Wukong, you can't escape from my 5 Fingers Mountain. If you dare to disturb my sweet dreams, see if I won't suppress you under the mountain for 500 years. By then, Sun Wukong will also become a monkey head mushroom." Thinking about this, Gu Mengmeng revealed a naughty smile in her dream. But Elvis was in a terrible state, pain. No, 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 it was itchy. Not really, it was painful and itchy, comfortable and torturous, longing and resisting, anticipating and uneasy. Elvis could not describe what he was feeling right now. He only knew that this strange yet familiar feeling made him want to bite this troublemaker to death. But when he brought his mouth to hers, he could not even bare his fangs in front of her. He could only kiss her gently and sigh, "You are such a torturous little vixen." Gu Meng Meng clearly had no intention of letting Elvis go. Her other free hand also moved forward and touched it carefully. This touch, ham sausage. Which brand of ham came in this size? Was it Jinhua ham? But that was not right. Why was the ham sausage hot? Who would heat up a ham sausage in the microwave before eating? Moreover, why was it jumping and jumping like that? It could move, damn, a bug. A mutated caterpillar. Thinking of this, Gu Meng Meng suddenly opened her eyes. Before her brain could react, she let go of her hands and retreated far away. She posed like Yuan and looked at Elvis in fear. When she finally calmed down and woke up from her dreams, Gu Meng Meng was totally dumbfounded. Elvis laid on the side of the bed, looking as if he had been harmed by someone. His clothes were disheveled and his face, which was always so cool, was filled with embarrassment and unbearable pain. There was a blush on the tip of his ears, making him look very attractive. His thin lips were pressed into a straight line, his dark green eyes looking at Gu Meng Meng lovingly. If he were to match his current appearance with lines, he wouldn't even know what to say. "You bastard, don't come over." All right, it would be more appropriate to add, "Dear customer, come on." The worst part was that the sky-supporting pillar was too eye-catching. Gu Meng Meng instinctively looked at her own hand and compared the size. F*ck me. Elvis had been observing Gu Meng Meng's expression the whole time. Seeing the entire process of her face turning from red to white to red and then back to black, his emotions had already flown back and forth in the sky countless times. Elvis actually felt a sense of shame as he was being scrutinized by her naked body. This feeling made him want to flee, but he did not do so. On one hand, he knew that the cave was only so big, where could he escape to? On the other hand, in his heart, there was a sense of anticipation that firmly fixed him on the spot, making him unable to move. Aside from the topic. Chapter 222. I won't take responsibility. Gu Meng Meng's brain heated up as she shouted. Then, she grabbed the beast's skin and covered her head with it, turning around and pretending to be an ostrich. But Elvis suddenly heaved a sigh of relief, as if he was laughing. Gu Meng Meng could not see Elvis's expression, she just felt her face burning up. She knew that this analogy might not be appropriate, but according to the Beast World's concept, she had done a solid job on Elvis this time. Looking at it from another angle, it was equivalent to a male idol being kept by a female fan in the modern world, eating and drinking from her and enjoying all the luxurious treatment. Then, on a dark and windy night, he stripped the female fan naked and touched her all over. The female fan thought to herself, "This is going to be the end, right?" But the damn male idol suddenly stopped, retreated and said, "Don't think too much, I only treat you as a friend." Shameless, too shameless. The more Gu Meng Meng thought about it, the more she felt like a jerk in a melodramatic television drama. No. Even a jerk would not be like her. He was after all a scam for money and sex, a one-stop service. She was now a scam for money and not sex, receiving money but not doing anything. She lifted the blanket abruptly and wiped her mouth fiercely, staring at Elvis. "You, come over. I have decided to take responsibility." This time, Elvis was the one who was dumbfounded. Take responsibility. Elvis carefully and cautiously repeated these two words that made his heart beat wildly. Gu Meng Meng rolled up her sleeves and made up her mind, saying, "Yes, I will take responsibility." What the heck, if I don't take responsibility after touching you, I will become a damn hooligan. Elvis suddenly smiled and moved forward with great difficulty. Because a certain part of his body was swollen badly, this small movement was extremely difficult for him now. Elvis leaned his upper body forward and laid beside Gu Mingming's legs, with both his hands supporting himself against the bed frame. He was a head shorter than Gu Mengmeng and he looked at Gu Mengmeng with a 45-degree angle. Squinting his blue eyes, he asked with a lustful smile, "How do you intend to take responsibility?" Gu Mengmeng almost bit her own tongue at Elvis's question. Hardening her heart, she hugged Elvis's neck and tucked him under her armpit like a female bandit, avoiding the face that made her blush and her heart beat rapidly. She purposely raised her voice to make herself sound heroic. "From today onwards, you are my man. In the future, as long as I eat, I won't miss a bite from you." Elvis's gaze gradually blurred as he laid on Gu Mingming's lap. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng and asked, "So, have you decided to mate with me?" Gu Mengmeng choked on her own saliva. She cleared her throat and made up her mind, saying, "Yes." "Isn't it just mating?" "Yes." Elvis used his elbow to support himself on the bed and flipped over to press Gu Mengmeng down. His scorching breath blew towards her and the orange flames danced, dyeing the side of Elvis's face red. His fingers slowly brushed past Gu Mingming's face. His gaze was blurred and affectionate as he asked with a slightly hoarse voice, "So, you are willing now, right?" Chapter 223. The meat that was already in her mouth, not eating it. Elvis smiled slyly and leaned forward to kiss Gu Mingming's lips. He was so greedy that he could not stop himself. He sucked on the fragrance and sweetness in her mouth and only released her reluctantly when Gu Mengmeng was almost out of breath. Looking at Gu Mingming's flushed face, Elvis kissed the side of her face lightly, followed by her ear. That ambiguous voice that could make one go crazy traveled into Gu Mingming's ears. "See, like this, you won't cough anymore." Gu Mingming's emotions had long been messed up by Elvis's kisses. She panted heavily to suppress her frantic heartbeat and placed her little hand on Elvis's chest. She shook her head with difficulty and said, "But I'm not ready yet." Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to his lips and kissed it. His other hand gently tidied the strands of hair on her face. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with a determined gaze and said, "As long as you are sure that you like me and are willing to have me, leave the rest to me." Gu Mingming's heart was beating without any rhythm. At this moment, it was no longer a matter of missing one or two beats. She only felt that her heart was switching between the two melodies of "Waiting for You to Love Me" and "The Cowboy is Busy." At times, it was slow and powerful. With every beat, she could clearly feel a huge amount of blood rushing into her brain. At times, it was frivolous and joyous. It was beating so fast that she could not even breathe smoothly. The inexplicable nervousness and uneasiness made her want to reject him. But there was a mysterious force that was guiding her to secretly taste the forbidden fruit. Elvis pulled Gu Mingming's little hand to the back of his waist. Her little hand, which had turned cold due to nervousness, wrapped around the back of his waist. He supported Gu Mingming's ear with one hand and stroked Gu Mingming's silky hair with the other. He lowered his head and kissed her lips lightly. It was a fatal temptation. "Tell me, do you like me?" Elvis asked. Gu Mengmeng felt as if all the nerves in her body had gone numb. Her hands did not belong to her and neither did her legs. Her brain could barely decipher Elvis's message, but she did not know how to reply. She reacted faster than her brain. Even Gu Mengmeng herself was shocked. She actually nodded her head so honestly. Elvis smiled and kissed Gu Mingming's lips again as a reward. The hand that was in her hair slowly supported the back of her head, while the other hand that was supporting her ears slowly moved downwards, wrapping around her waist. With a little bit of force, her whole body was tightly pressed against his, leaving only a small gap. Then, there's only one question left. Elvis pressed his lips against Gu Mingming's little ears and whispered slowly, "Do you want me?" Gu Mingming's eyes were misty and her pupils were dilated. She was sure that she was conscious, but she just could not concentrate on thinking. Gu Mengmeng recognized a fact. She liked Elvis, it was the kind of love a woman had for a man. Elvis had always made her feel safe. No matter what the situation was, he would prioritize her feelings and stand behind her regardless of right or wrong. He had never given up on her and never made her worry for even a moment. She had never even thought that this man would leave her one day, so, when Leah confessed to her, she agreed without any hesitation. At that time, she was already very clear. Someone like Leah, if he did not hold on to her tightly, he might just abandon her at a certain junction. But Elvis would definitely not do that. Even if she were to date someone else, he would not leave her. "Ha, Gu Mengmeng, you really raised a good spare tire." Gu Mengmeng despised herself harshly in her heart, spitting on her scumbag behavior. Frowning, she looked at Elvis in front of her and felt her heart ache. Because of her selfishness, Elvis must have suffered a lot. "Answer me, do you want me?" Elvis felt the change in Gu Mingming's gaze. His large hand covered Gu Mingming's little hand which was cupping his face. He held her little hand tightly in his palm and said with his last bit of rationality, "As long as you say that you want it, I will give you all my loyalty without any reservations." Gu Mingming's expression changed. Elvis's eyes were fixed on Gu Mengmeng, his blue eyes filled with anticipation and urgency. He wanted to own her, this was almost an instinct that surged in his bones and blood. But in order to wait for her willing, he had been suppressing the desire to possess her. Now, he had reached the limit of his tolerance. Not only was his body about to explode, his remaining rationality was also about to explode. "If you can't promise, as long as you nod your head or give me a little hint, I will understand." Gu Mingming's heart twitched violently. Elvis, who was so cool, was actually so lowly in front of her. Once they mated, it was equivalent to Elvis offering his entire life. There was no way back or chance for regret. But even so, he was willing to be a partner without any promises just to not force her to say, "I want you." Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's neck and took the initiative to offer her lips to him. It was just a light peck, then she slowly moved back, distancing herself from him. She said in a gentle voice, "At my place, you have to say, 'I love you,' when you confess, 'I love you' when you propose, and 'I love you' when you mate." Elvis's body trembled violently, uncontrollably. His breathing was rapid and unstable. He kissed Gu Mingming's lips back and bit them harshly, as if this was the only way to confirm that every word he heard just now came from this little mouth. Kissing Elvis until he tasted the sweetness of Gu Mingming's blood, he then raised his head while panting heavily. He stared into Gu Mingming's eyes and said with utmost caution, "Gu Mengmeng, I love you. Are you willing to mate with me?" Gu Mengmeng smiled and retracted her little hands. She took off her clothes that were so messy that they could no longer cover her body and displayed her beauty completely in front of Elvis. She blushed shyly and faced Elvis's gaze. She did not avoid it, nor did she try to brush him off. She answered seriously, "Elvis, I love you. I will give myself to you, and from now on, I will treat you as my pride, my sky, and my husband. As long as you don't leave me, I will stick by your side in life and death. If you are in danger, I will use my life to protect you." Gu Mengmeng wanted to continue, but Elvis's eyes were already brimming with tears. He kissed Gu Mingming's lips again with extreme gentleness, extreme love and extreme everything. To put it simply, Gu Mengmeng had become Elvis's female. Be it physically or mentally, they had reached an unprecedented level of tacit understanding and resonance. Aside from the topic, considering the issue of harmony, the 2,580 words of detailed description will be omitted here. For more information, please enter the group to view the group sharing. Chapter 224. Elvis restarted the fire and placed the stone pot with the ginger water aside. He changed it to a bigger one and dug out many snow cubes to boil in the pot. After heating the water to a warm temperature, he started to clean Gu Mingming's body. She was obviously extremely tired and did not seem to have any intention of waking up no matter what Elvis did. Elvis was afraid that she would be left out again, so his actions were very swift. After cleaning her up, Elvis quickly crawled into the blanket and hugged Gu Mingming in his arms, using his body heat to keep her warm. He could hear Gu Mingming's even breathing and his nostrils were filled with the sluggish breath after the pleasure. The rare desire that he had to lay low seemed to be making a comeback. Elvis shut his eyes tightly. He knew that Xiao Meng could not withstand a second round of torment. She had to rest, have a good rest. After breathing for a while, Elvis managed to control the situation with his rationality. He poked the little person in his arms lightly and his gaze landed on her collarbone. Elvis's gaze became scorching and gentle. It was a tenderness that could melt the entire body but only warmed her. When Gu Mingming finally woke up, she felt as if she had been run over by a truck and her entire body was in pain. Holding onto her waist that was almost broken, Gu Mingming let out an "I-oh" and could not say anything else. Elvis handed over a bowl of warm water at the right time and said, "Moisten your throat, you're hoarse from all the shouting." The moment Elvis said that, the pleasure replayed in his mind like a movie that could not be turned off. Gu Mingming really wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide into and become an earthworm. It was too damn embarrassing. Elvis wrapped his arms around Gu Mingming so that she could lean against his chest and not have to use so much effort to support her aching body. Gu Mingming's back was pressed against Elvis's chest. Elvis's arms circled around Gu Mingming's chest and he brought the warm water to Gu Mingming's mouth, saying, "I've tried it, the temperature is just right, drink some." Gu Mingming wanted to take the bowl but Elvis dodged and pecked her face, saying, "Now, I have the right to take care of you. You can't push me away anymore, understand? I'm not used to being fed like this," Gu Mingming said in a hoarse voice. Elvis nodded and brought the bowl to his lips, drinking a mouthful of water. He then used his other hand to pinch Gu Mingming's chin and passed the water into her mouth. Gu Mingming's face flushed and she choked on her saliva. She coughed twice and wiped the water from her mouth. She stared at Elvis and asked, "What are you doing?" But Elvis replied with a matter-of-fact expression, "You're not used to feeding like that, so I'll change to a method you're more used to." Elvis stared and said, "I'm even more uncomfortable." But Elvis rubbed her little head dotingly and said, "I'll get used to it slowly." Gu Mingming choked for a moment, but facing Elvis at that moment, she could not bring herself to be stubborn. She thought to herself, "Wait till my aching back and cramping legs pass, see how I set rules for you." But Gu Mingming, she lowered her head and said, "I think I'll get used to it faster." Elvis smiled and did not say a word. He brought the bowl to Gu Mingming's mouth again. Gu Mingming instinctively used her hands to hold the bowl again, but Elvis pecked her face again. Gu Mingming froze and quickly put her hands down. She then obediently drank the water Elvis fed her. Digression, author's perspective. Outside Elvis's cave, a piece of snow moved slightly. If one did not look closely, it would be hard to notice that there was a snow fox lying there. Males and females were at their weakest during mating. There was almost no chance of survival if they were attacked. So, under normal circumstances, females would choose 2 to 3 partners during their coming-of-age ceremony. One of them would be the first partner, while the other would guard the entrance of the cave to prevent any accidents from happening. Gu Mingming only had Elvis as her partner. Even though there was not much chance of danger during the snowy winter, Leah still rushed over. He did not dare to transform into his human form, afraid that he would not be able to control his expression. But he did not know that even though he looked like a fox now, his gaze could not lie. A drop of crystal-clear liquid flowed down from the corner of his eye. Before it reached his chin, it had already frozen. He should be happy, right? Gu Meng Meng and Elvis finally made it successfully. His wish came true. But his heart ached. Chapter 225. Gu Meng Meng lowered her head and gasped in surprise. Pushing the water bowl to one side, Gu Meng Meng stared at her own collarbone in shock for a moment. She reached out and rubbed her collarbone, then rubbed her eyes. She was sure that what she saw was not an illusion. A lifelike black wolf was standing on her collarbone, raising its head to howl at the moon. The combination was exquisite. Her collarbone was like a cliff, and the wolf was proud and aloof. Gu Meng Meng looked at the pattern on her collarbone and then at Elvis. She then lowered her head to look at her collarbone and then looked up at Elvis again. She repeated this many times. Gu Meng Meng suddenly frowned and said angrily, "You actually tattooed me while I was asleep." Elvis did not know what tattooing meant, but he roughly understood that she was referring to the wolf totem on her collarbone. Seeing that she did not seem to like it, Elvis was actually very hurt. Not wanting her to see through his emotions, Elvis pretended to be calm and said, "This is a mating mark. You will have it after mating." Gu Meng Meng thought about it and indeed, it should not be a tattoo. Even if she was in a deep sleep, it was impossible for her not to know that a tattoo was so painful. Moreover, a new tattoo would need to swell for at least 10 days to half a month before it goes down. It was impossible for it to not hurt after being tattooed. So she smiled apologetically and said, "I was not fully awake and my brain is not working well. I was spouting nonsense, please don't mind me." Elvis forced the corners of his lips and said faintly, "It's not strange that you don't like it. After all, compared to a black wolf, you like snow foxes more." Gu Meng Meng almost bit her tongue. "Your new husband started discussing your ex-boyfriend with you in the East. Was he going to bring up the past?" Who said I don't like it? I like it very much. Look, how cool it is." Elvis pulled Gu Meng Meng into his arms and gently rubbed the mark on her collarbone with his fingers. He said, "Although it is not on your heart, I am already very satisfied that it is here. After all, I initially thought it would be on your ankle or arm. I did not even dare to think that it would be so close to your heart." Gu Meng Meng also lowered her head to look at the wolf on her collarbone. Thinking that it was Elvis's incarnation, her heart warmed. She asked, "Don't you feel that you look very handsome standing here? I've seen wolf kings standing like that in movies. It's so domineering and mighty." Elvis caressed her collarbone and said, "As long as it's on your body, no matter where. I'm very satisfied." Gu Meng Meng leaned into Elvis's arms and watched as his fingers caressed her collarbone. She asked, "No matter where? The mating mark isn't in a fixed place." Elvis held Gu Meng Meng's little hand and hugged her up. He kissed the side of her face and answered, "The position of the mark depends on how important a male is to a female. The closer the male was to the heart, the more the female liked him. In an ordinary family, the female was the core, followed by the first partner. The next position was determined by the position of the mark on the female's body. Basically, the closer the mark was to the heart, the higher the status. If a male could leave a mark on a female's heart, then even the first mate of the family would be wary of this male. Chapter 226. Gu Meng Meng sneaked a peek at Elvis. Although he hid it very well, Gu Meng Meng could clearly feel that he was actually a little disappointed in his heart, right? On the night of their wedding, anyone would not feel good to find out that he was not the one his wife loved the most. Gu Meng Meng turned around and faced Elvis face to face. She cupped his handsome face with both hands and stared straight into his eyes that were as blue and as deep as the night sky. She said word by word, "You know my views on marriage, right?" Elvis's heart was hit hard. Blood rushed to his head and he nodded his head slowly and stiffly. Gu Mengmeng retracted one of her hands and slowly touched the mating mark on her left collarbone. She said, although it is not branded on my heart, I feel that this is the most suitable place for it. Because in the future, everyone will be able to see our mating mark every day when I wear a dress. I want to announce to the whole world that you, Elvis, are my man and only mine. From today onwards, if anyone dares to have any ill intentions towards you, I will make sure that the hand that reaches out will not be able to return. Gu Mengmeng made a gesture of raising her hand and slashing it down. She even raised her head in a domineering manner. Elvis's heart had never been so warm before. Just because she said that he was willing to display this mating mark in front of everyone, to tell everyone that he was her male. Elvis smiled knowingly and hugged Gu Mengmeng's shoulders, pulling her back into his arms. Looking at her pressing the side of her face against his chest in an obedient and docile manner, his iron heart melted into a puddle of water. Lifting Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly, Elvis smiled faintly and said, "Indeed, if we want everyone to see it, it's not very convenient to put it on my heart." Gu Mengmeng smiled too. Actually, in the modern world, deep V's were very common, but for someone with a voluptuous figure like her, when others wore fashionable deep V's, she would look like a prostitute. As a result, she would usually wear a conservative big round neck, causing her voluptuous figure to look a little bloated under her clothes. This was also the reason why she did not even ask for the WeChat number of the swimming club's male god even though she had been drooling over him for a long time. She listened to the sales lady's recommendation and bought a bikini that accentuated her figure. She wanted to run to the swimming club to meet the Prince Charming. If that Prince Charming really came to flirt with her after seeing her bikini, then that Prince Charming's character would really be, Luckily, she had transmigrated here by accident, or else she would have become a dead man. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and listened to his strong heartbeat. She suddenly remembered something and asked, "Mengmeng, Gu Mengmeng." Elvis did not understand what she was asking and replied with a single word. Gu Mengmeng straightened her body and checked Elvis's body carefully. But she could not find her own mark, so she asked, "Where is my mark on your body? Why can't I see it?" Elvis rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head and said, "Silly girl, a male's body will not leave a female's mark." Why? Gu Mengmeng thought to herself that it was not fair. Other people's wedding rings came in pairs and she had never heard of couples' tattoos that only belonged to one person. Why was it that in the beast world, something as important as the mating mark was only left on females? Gender discrimination. This was blatant gender discrimination. Aside from the topic. Chapter 227. Elvis had gradually gotten used to Gu Mengmeng's specialness. There were many common knowledge in the beast world that she did not know. Thus, Elvis enjoyed the warmth of hugging Gu Mengmeng while explaining, leaving the male totem on the female's body is for protection. When you meet with danger or difficulties, just hit this totem hard and I will be able to sense where you are. Then, I will immediately rush to your side to save you. Elvis used his finger to lightly point at the mark on Gu Mengmeng's collarbone and said, "This is connected to here." Gu Mengmeng looked at her little hand being placed on his chest by Elvis and felt warmth in her heart. She smiled sweetly and lowered her head back into his arms. She placed the side of her face on the back of his hand and felt the warmth and peace of mind. Elvis used his other hand to hold Gu Mengmeng's shoulder gently and fixed the beast skin on her body. He then continued, "But if the male has the female's mark on him, the female will feel pain when the male meets with an accident. If possible, the male would rather die quietly. It would be best if there are other partners who can coax the female so well that she does not even realize that she has lost one partner. In this way, she can always live a carefree life." Gu Mengmeng really felt that she had nothing to say. She looked at Elvis with an expression as if she had eaten sh*t and said, "Then how sensitive are the females? How can they not know that their husband has died?" Elvis smiled as he recalled the title that Gu Mengmeng had said. He had cheated her to call him that once before. Now, could he openly receive this title? Gu Mengmeng did not know what Elvis was laughing at. She elbowed him and said, "What are you laughing at? I'm asking you a question. How can there be someone who doesn't know that her husband has died?" Elvis hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin with his finger and said, "That means, you have not used this title to call me before." Ah. Gu Mengmeng's mind was filled with the thought of a widowed female who did not know that her man had died. So, she could not keep up with Elvis's pace. She tilted her little head and looked at Elvis in a daze. "My mark has already been imprinted on your body, you should at least give me the title you are supposed to give me, right?" Elvis gently caressed her collarbone, his eyes filled with anticipation. Gu Mengmeng thought for a moment before understanding what Elvis was saying. She cleared her throat and looked at the stone pot that was boiling water at the side. She whimpered out two indistinct words, "Hubby." Elvis pinched Gu Mengmeng's little chin and forced her to look into his eyes. The shyer she was, the more eager he was. A pair of blue eyes seemed to contain the profoundness of the entire universe. He looked at Gu Mengmeng's clear eyes and said, "I can't hear you clearly, what did you say?" "Hubby." Gu Mengmeng's voice became even softer. Unable to avoid Elvis's eyes, Gu Mengmeng could not get used to their status as newlyweds and felt even more embarrassed. Her throat was stuck together and she could not shout clearly no matter how hard she tried. But Elvis refused to let her off just like that. He gently shook her little chin and said word by word, "Can't hear clearly." Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and swallowed her saliva. She closed her eyes and shouted, "Hubby, hubby, hubby." Chapter 228. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while. Including Bailey, who had just mated 2 days ago, there should be a total of 7, so she answered Elvis honestly. Elvis asked again, "Then do you know how many partners Maya has?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and smiled awkwardly. Then, she shook her head honestly and said, "I am really not that close to Maya. She used to be with Nina." Although she did not bully Sandy directly, she did watch from the side for a long time. Sometimes, silence is scarier than violence. She is also a half-orc and I can understand that she does not have the ability to protect Sandy. But I can't accept her staying quietly by Nina's side. It's just that I don't want to offend anyone and cause the 4 females in the tribe to be at odds with each other. By then, the entire Saint Nazir will not have peace. So, although I don't want to form a grudge with her, I'm not too close to her either. Elvis brought Gu Mengmeng's little hand to his lips and kissed it. He said, "Don't make things difficult for yourself. You don't have to socialize with people you don't like. If anyone has any dissatisfaction, tell them to look for me." Gu Mengmeng fiddled with Elvis's fingers and said sweetly in her heart, "But I am the wife of the tribe leader now. I have to look at the big picture, right?" Elvis smiled and looked at Gu Mengmeng with a pair of affectionate eyes. He said, "You, just take care of yourself. I will look after the big picture." Gu Mengmeng smiled and twisted her body. Then, she suddenly raised her head and pecked Elvis's face. She said, "You have a sweet mouth. Let me reward you." Elvis licked his lips and thought to himself, maybe he should go and eat more yellow gravy. Wouldn't he get more rewards this way? Gu Mengmeng was a little shy. She exclaimed and asked, "Then how many partners does Maya have?" Elvis answered, 15. Gu Mengmeng's mouth turned into an O, so wide that an egg could fit in it. She repeated in confusion, "How many?" 15. Elvis nodded and gently lifted her little chin to close her mouth. He then continued to ask, "Then guess again, how many partners does Nina have?" Gu Mengmeng thought for a while. There was only Quentin whom she could call by name, plus Leah who should have mated by now. There were 2 of them. There were 7 that were injured by Leah at Sandy's doorstep previously. Adding the one she rode on every time she went out, there should be 10 of them. Every time, there would be some males that Gu Meng Meng could not remember the faces of, so there should be 17 to 18 of them. Gu Meng Meng thought for a while, then stretched out 2 fingers and said, 20. Elvis shook his head. Gu Meng Meng stretched out another finger. 30. Elvis still shook his head. Gu Meng Meng clenched her teeth and stretched out another finger. 40. Elvis raised his eyebrows and answered, 43. What the heck? Gu Meng Meng was truly shocked for once. There were 43 of them. If he took one a day, he wouldn't be able to finish his turn in a month. Elvis pushed Gu Meng Meng's little chin again and said, other than Quentin and a few partners who were stronger than her, I'm afraid she herself doesn't even remember the names of those males who had pledged their loyalty to her. In her eyes, those males are the hunters who provide food during the rainy season, the continuous supply of water during the dry season, and the stored food during the winter. Gu Meng Meng sighed in her heart and felt that it was not worth it for Nina's partners. Gu Meng Meng's heart twitched as she thought of Leah. Aside from the topic, the first day of 2018 I've decided to treat my babies better. It's midnight today, to celebrate the new year. Chapter 229. The moment Gu Meng Meng thought of Leah, she forced herself to divert her attention. Now that she had already mated with Elvis, no matter what the rules were in the beast world, at least she herself could not accept the so-called polygamy system. Mental infidelity was also considered infidelity. Even if others did not know, Gu Meng Meng knew that she could not get past herself. So she took a deep breath and changed the topic, but I don't see any partner marks on Nina's body. That's because she's a female that was banished from the tribe. Elvis snorted in disdain, then continued, Nina was originally the only complete female in her previous tribe, but a half-orc female accidentally gave birth to a complete female cub. That cub quickly displayed her kindness and beauty, attracting the attention of the new generation of males in the tribe. Nina felt that her position was threatened, so she asked Quentin to kill that pair of mother and daughter. Gu Meng Meng was so angry that she could not find another word to express her anger. Damn it, was Nina's brain filled with maggots? She already had 43 partners, and she still killed a child because of jealousy. Elvis nodded his head, indicating that it was true. Then he continued, Quentin was originally very strong, and with the advantage of being able to fly, sneak attacks were his trump card. Taking advantage of the fact that the males of the family were unprepared, he grabbed the mother and daughter, flew into the sky, and then dropped them to their deaths. When the female died, the males would die from the backlash of the mating contract. So that entire family died just like that. Gu Meng Meng said in disbelief, I always knew that Nina had a twisted personality, but I didn't expect her to be so twisted. Just because her child was beautiful, she had to kill her entire family. Pervert. Elvis caressed Gu Meng Meng's little face gently, so although she was a precious complete female, her original tribe did not dare to keep her anymore. In the beast world, no matter what mistakes a female committed, they cannot be killed. So Nina herself did not have to pay any price. But Quentin, as the executor, naturally had to go to the platform of the deity's punishment, and Nina's other partners would be executed as accomplices. Gu Meng Meng truly felt wronged for Nina's partners. Why would they rather be single for 10,000 years than marry such a scourge? Elvis continued, I'm not sure how many partners Nina had at that time, nor did I ask. They only knew that the tribes which doctor had consulted the beast deity and came to the conclusion that Nina would only be forgiven if her partner died in the same way as the half-orc female's male. Therefore, one of Nina's partners personally gave Nina the talisman water to wash away the mating marks, and watched her drink it without hesitation. Then, they watched as the mating marks on her body disappeared bit by bit, and all of them rotted to death bit by bit. Until he turned into a pool of blood, the eyes of the partner who gave Nina the water talisman were still looking at Nina affectionately. His last words were, "As long as you can live well, that's enough." "Then why is Quentin alright?" Gu Meng Meng asked. Because at that time, Quentin had not mated with Nina yet. Nina said that she would only accept Quentin into her family if he killed the mother and daughter for her. Aside from the topic, thank you to the little babies from Xiaoxiang Academy, Siki 924, Ear 7107, QQA 97 Bob 2F. For the flowers, and Wawa Little Frog for the comment votes. Thank you to the little babies who have been accompanying Susu in 2017. Thank you for despising me, ridiculing me, and loving me at the same time. Chapter 230. Gu Meng Meng was so speechless that she did not know what to say. No wonder Quentin was Nina's first partner. Nina's previous partners had all died because of her. Then how did this scourge come to Saint Nazaire? Gu Meng Meng asked in disdain. Quentin, who came down from the platform of the deity's punishment, mated with Nina as he wished. Then, he brought the banished Nina away from their original tribe. There was a half-orc female in that tribe who was very good friends with the half-orc female who had died. In order to avenge her dead friend, she ordered all her males to block Nina and Quentin outside the tribe. Quentin's wings were injured in the battle and he could no longer fly. Then, he came to Saint Nazaire. At that time, Saint Nazaire only had 2 half-orc females, Sandy and Maya. Although Nina was notorious, she was still a precious complete female. In addition to Quentin's outstanding abilities, Leah suggested that I take them in. Gu Meng Meng laid quietly on Elvis's knees and listened to his story. She did not interrupt and just listened quietly. Elvis trusted Lee's judgment very much, so he took Nina in without any hesitation. The truth also proved that Lee's decision solved almost half of Saint Nazaire's mating problems. Elvis tidied Gu Mingming's hair and continued, because of that special water, Nina could no longer brand the mark of a male on her body after mating. This was the punishment from the beast deity. She could no longer receive the protection of the beast deity. As for Quentin, although Leah healed his wings and allowed him to fly temporarily, it was impossible for him to lift heavy objects into the sky again. So, when he went to assassinate you, he did not throw you down from the sky. You escaped because of that, but you still stood up for Quentin like a fool. Gu Meng Meng thought about it and felt that her actions were indeed stupid. She laughed at herself and did not reply. Elvis tapped Gu Mingming's little nose and continued, "Do you think that a female like Nina would realize if one or a few of her partners were missing?" Gu Meng Meng thought about it and felt a little regretful, but still shook her head. Elvis smiled and said sadly, "Indeed, she would not realize at all. And Nina's situation is a common situation in the beast world. Sandy is a special case. She only mates with males she likes, so she has very few partners. And this is also one of the reasons why Nina does not like her and always bullies her." Gu Meng Meng then understood that Elvis was actually answering her earlier question after beating around the bush. If all the females in the beast world were like Nina, then it would be so pitiful for the males. Gu Meng Meng took the initiative to jump into Elvis's arms and hugged him tightly, saying, "You're my husband, the only husband in this world." Gu Meng Meng, Gu Meng Meng, Shin longer, Gu Meng Meng, and Gu Air. Gu long said, "Not." S Gu God, Sheaf Li Wang S long S U 4. U 4 Chu Mo. Chu Li S Chu. Chapter 231. Gu Meng Meng opened her mouth and bit Elvis's shoulder harshly. Pain, it was not too painful, but Elvis still kept his mouth shut and did not finish his sentence. Gu Meng Meng bit so hard that her cheeks hurt, but she only left a shallow bite mark on Elvis's shoulder. She rubbed her sore cheeks in frustration, then glared at Elvis angrily and said, "If you dare to die outside, I will knock my head against the wall and die in this cave. I will haunt you even as a ghost, twist your ear and ask you, where did you get the guts to abandon me?" It was the first time in Elvis's life that he was attacked, but he did not crush the other party to death. What was even more amazing was that he could not feel any anger at all. Instead, a sweet feeling filled his heart. He hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms and said gently, "I am very strong. For you, I will become even stronger." Gu Mengmeng then smiled and kissed the place where she bit him just now. She said, "That's a good boy. Today is after all our big day of mating. It's so inauspicious to die. I want you to live with me for a long time." Elvis said and touched Gu Mingming's little head lovingly, saying, "Xiao Meng, you have to promise me one thing." Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and looked at Elvis. Elvis paused for a moment and continued, "If one day, I really meet with some danger that I can't come back from, don't knock yourself to death. You have to protect yourself well and replace me to live for a long time, do you understand?" Gu Mengmeng was angry and turned away, ignoring Elvis. Elvis hugged her from behind and his voice was still gentle, with a hint of pleading. He said, "Only you can make me be willing to risk my life in a battle. You live well, that is my biggest wish. Promise me, at least, let me die in peace." Gu Mengmeng got angrier the more she heard. She turned around and pulled Elvis's ear, asking, "What? We just made it and you're already planning to make me a widow. I told you not to say it, but you still insisted. If I don't let you know how powerful I am, you'll think that I'm made of paper, right?" Elvis cooperated and cried out in pain, begging for mercy that he would never do it again. Only then did Gu Mengmeng let go. She looked at Elvis's reddened ears and rubbed them with heartache. "Are you stupid? Won't you run away if I pinch your ears?" Elvis held on to her little hand that was rubbing his ear and pulled it to his chest. Then, he smiled and said, "But I don't want to leave you, not even one step." Gu Mengmeng smiled and leaned into Elvis's arms. Rumble rumble, a familiar yet awkward sound came from Gu Mengmeng's stomach. Gu Mengmeng clutched her stomach and looked up at Elvis with an eager smile. "You must be hungry, I'll go cook." Elvis did not stop Gu Mengmeng. With his appetite, the food Gu Mengmeng made could not fill him up. But he did not want to tell Gu Mengmeng about this, because he could save more food for her. Gu Mengmeng ran into the depths of the cave happily. Elvis had carried her here a few times, so she probably knew where everything was placed. Roasted sweet potatoes, sweet and delicious roasted sweet potatoes. Gu Mengmeng squatted at one side and picked 2 moderately sized sweet potatoes from the pile of sweet potatoes that were as high as a small mountain. She was prepared to put them into the fire pit to roast later. Fire, Gu Mengmeng suddenly thought of something. This was the depths of the cave and the light from the fire at the entrance could not possibly shine in. Then Gu Mengmeng lowered her head to look at the 2 sweet potatoes in her hands. She could even clearly see the cracks on the skin of the sweet potatoes. F******. Golden finger. Aside from the topic, Gu Mengmeng's first golden finger, night vision was activated because of her mating. To celebrate, she made a small scene. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and sat in front of the cave, looking up at the sky. Gu Mengmeng pulled Elvis's hand and said, "Hubby, count the stars with me." Elvis nodded and looked at the dazzling stars in the sky. He counted slowly, 1, 2, 3. Gu Mengmeng looked at Elvis's hard work and suddenly laughed. "Forget it, you're too stupid and not suitable to count the stars. How about this, I'll count the stars and you count the moon." Chapter 232. Gu Mengmeng held a sweet potato in each hand and shouted loudly with her bare feet, "Aw!" She dragged her voice as she ran towards Elvis. Elvis was shocked by Gu Mingming's roar. By right, there should not be any danger in the cave, so why was she screaming so miserably? Elvis's actions were much faster than Gu Mingming's, so Gu Mengmeng had only taken a few steps when Elvis had already leaped in. He met her face to face and without saying a word, he pulled her into his arms and looked around warily. He was sure that this was his cave. There was no smell of outsiders in the cave, not even a bug. But Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng suspiciously. She was holding back her big red face and staring straight at him. She held a sweet potato in each hand and gestured excitedly. Xiao Meng. Elvis patted her back lightly, then took the big sweet potato from her hands and asked, "What's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng panted heavily and said with a grin, "Look, what's this?" Elvis did not understand, but still answered honestly, "Sweet potato." Gu Mengmeng nodded her head excitedly and said, "Yes, this is a sweet potato." Elvis still did not understand what Gu Mengmeng was so excited about. He could only look at her quietly and wait for her to catch her breath before continuing. Gu Mengmeng pointed at the sweet potato at the side and said, "This is a sweet potato." Then, she turned her head and pointed at the other side and said, "There's a pile of potatoes there." Then, she pointed at the other entrance of the cave and said, "That cave has our preserved meat," and Elvis suddenly understood. He hooked Gu Mingming's little chin lightly and turned her little face towards him. Then, he asked softly, "Can you see me now?" Gu Mengmeng nodded her head excitedly and threw away the other sweet potato in her hands. Then, she used her finger to trace Elvis's outline and said softly, "This is Elvis's eyebrows, this is Elvis's nose, these are Elvis's eyes, and here." Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's face with both hands and offered her own lips. She kissed him lightly and then continued, "This is Elvis's mouth." Elvis smiled as he held the back of Gu Mingming's head and kissed her lips back. He only released her after a long while. "This is the proof that you are the messenger of the beast deity," Elvis said. "What?" Gu Mengmeng did not understand. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng with one hand and easily picked up the 2 sweet potatoes she had picked out with the other hand. He said while carrying Gu Mengmeng out, "Only the messengers of the beast deity can inherit special abilities from their partners." Gu Mingming's eyes lit up. Gu Mengmeng frowned, clearly unable to understand. Elvis continued to explain patiently, "Normally, although females are much weaker than males, they still have the usual abilities, such as the ability to see in the dark, the ability to transform, the speed of running or the sharp claws and teeth. They had all the abilities they inherited from their sire, so they would not inherit their partner's abilities. On the other hand, the messenger of the beast deity is the exact opposite. You did not inherit any abilities from your father beast, so your body is like a vessel, still empty. You can inherit some of your partner's characteristics. Chapter 233. Elvis did not know who a husky was, but he heard Gu Mengmeng call him that a few times, so he thought that maybe in Gu Mingming's original world, a wolf's nickname was a husky. So he nodded his head seriously and said, "I only heard Leah mention a little about the beast deity's messenger being able to inherit the partner's abilities. After all, it was 1,000 years ago and we don't know to what extent we can inherit it. But you can try and see if you can become a husky." Gu Mingming's lips twitched as she laughed dryly, then she shook her head and said, "It's better not to try, I don't want to become a dog." Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little chin and corrected her, "It's a wolf." Gu Mengmeng twitched her lips and replied, "I don't want to become a wolf either. What if I can't change back after I transform?" Don't. Elvis did not force her, it was already a good thing for him that she had inherited his vision. At least he did not have to worry about her accidentally bumping into anything when she walked in the cave in the future. That was enough. As for speed, strength and even attacking ability, it was enough for him to have it. It was Gu Mingming's first time trying to move around freely in the dark. The joy and excitement in her heart made her unsatisfied with being carried in Elvis's arms. She struggled to get off the ground and Elvis did not stop her. He just found 2 thicker pieces of beast skin to wrap her little feet up and let her run around in the cave. He just followed behind her and smiled at how she found everything she saw to be novel. He smiled faintly. She had to admit that Elvis's cave was really huge. Gu Meng Meng had never been so deep in the past, or rather, she had been here before, but she had no impression of it at all. Because once she left the space near the entrance of the cave, she would be blind with her eyes open. Elvis would carry her wherever he went and she would not know where she was at all. But it was different now, everything was so clear to her. This feeling was too realistic and Gu Meng Meng was so happy that she was about to fly. Humph humph humph, Gu Meng Meng hummed a tuneless little tune and entered the self-exhilarating mode of exploration. Every time they entered a deeper cave, Gu Meng Meng would feel a wave of nervousness and excitement. Elvis carried Gu Meng Meng up gently and asked with a smile, "Aren't you hungry? Do you want to go eat something first and come back later to continue watching?" Gu Meng Meng was having fun, how could she retreat now? She shook her head and took out 2 pieces of dried fish from her pocket. She placed one in her mouth and chewed it for a while before sending the other piece to Elvis's lips. "I took this from that house just now. This is for you." Elvis did not take the dried fish from Gu Meng Meng, but instead, he took another bite of the piece that Gu Meng Meng had bitten off, following the bite marks left by Gu Meng Meng's teeth. He imitated Gu Meng Meng's way of chewing, before nodding his head in a serious manner. "Yeah, it's really delicious." Gu Meng Meng bashfully punched Elvis's chest, then scolded, "Annoying," before running deeper into the cave. For the next half a month, Gu Meng Meng was in an extremely excited state. She could suddenly see everything in the dark, which made her feel extremely curious. Elvis's acupuncture point was also big enough. She struggled to stay in different rooms every day and Elvis had to help her carry the small bed that was made from 2 big pieces of solid wood. Although this kind of carrying was meaningless, Elvis felt that nothing was more blissful than accompanying her to do these meaningless things that could make her happy when he saw Gu Meng Meng's smiling face. Chapter 234. Xiao Meng. Elvis laid on the side of the bed and circled Gu Meng Meng in his arms. His fingers brushed past her cheeks, full of love and cherishing. He hesitated for a moment before finally asking, "Can you sing a song for me too?" Gu Meng Meng smiled and nodded. Then, she sat up and looked at Elvis. After thinking for a moment, she cleared her throat and sang, "I close my eyes and breathe next to your heartbeat. And now, we are the only ones left on earth." The melody was melodious and every note carried Gu Meng Meng's sweet feelings at that moment. Her fingers gently tangled with Elvis's ink-like long hair, twisting it in her hands before releasing it slowly. When she sang, "Love you, love you, love you, we will always be together," she even paused and secretly kissed Elvis's lips before continuing to sing. She would not ask Elvis why he suddenly wanted to listen to her sing, because she did not ignore the word "also" that Elvis said. After coming to the beast world, Elvis was the 3rd person who could make her open her mouth to sing. The first was Sandy. Guojing's Dowry had already become her exclusive song. The second was Leah. She did not expect him to sing the song, "A Little Luck," back then to suit the situation. Elvis naturally would not use the word "also" on Sandy. He was definitely referring to Leah. When Gu Meng Meng finished singing this song, Elvis seemed to have heaved a sigh of relief. How afraid was he that Gu Meng Meng would reject him and not sing a song for him? How afraid was he that Gu Meng Meng would sing a sad song again? But luckily, Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng back into his arms and asked, "What's the name of this song?" Gu Meng Meng replied, "This song is called Love You. The original singer is Chen Fangyu. When I first heard it, the variety shows in Taiwan could still be watched in the Celestial Empire. She went on the variety show to do publicity. She had a small stature, but her explosive power was shocking. She was definitely in the opening song series. But when I listened to the official version, it was not as infectious as the live version. But it was still very nice to listen to. Elvis still did not understand a large part of Gu Mingming's words. But even so, Elvis still felt very happy to see her talking about her past with such vigor. The past that he didn't have the chance to participate in, even if it was just a little, made him feel a little closer to her. Crack, crack. An inharmonious voice sounded. Gu Mengmeng did not notice it, but Elvis's entire body tensed up. He pulled over a beast's skin and wrapped her up. Then, he looked at the direction of the cave with his guard up while saying, "Hide in the cave where we store our salted fish. Unless I come to fetch you, don't come out no matter what you hear or see." Gu Mengmeng did not know what was going on and was confused by Elvis's nervousness. She turned around and asked while being hugged by Elvis, What's wrong? What's going on? Why did you hide it?" Chapter 235. Gu Mengmeng did not know what had happened, but she decided to trust Elvis. Thus, she wrapped herself tighter with the beast skin that Elvis had wrapped around her body and walked deeper into the cave. She sat at the place where the dried fish were stored and looked at the frozen dried fish in the cave. She then looked worriedly at the sealed entrance of the cave. She could see things in the dark, but her eyes were not X-rays. It was impossible for her to see what was happening on the other side of the sealed entrance. Fortunately, the cave was not completely silent. A loud sound made Gu Mengmeng shiver. She was familiar with this sound. It was Elvis's wolf howl. Could it be that Elvis had transformed to make such a sound? What was going on? Why did Elvis suddenly transform? Could it be that it was the 15th full moon night? Was Elvis's wild beast blood awakening? Or, split personality? Just like in 7 of Me, where Elvis with a violent personality appeared. Just as Gu Mingming's thoughts were running wild, she heard a loud bang. It was as if something had landed heavily on the pile of soil that Elvis had used to seal the entrance of the cave. Gu Mingming's head buzzed. No, Elvis was not the only one outside. This was the sound of a fight. Didn't they say that the snow had sealed the mountain and no one would come out of their cave? Why would someone suddenly barge in? Gu Mengmeng was extremely worried. She laid on the pile of soil and used her hands to dig at the sealed entrance. She desperately wanted to know what had happened outside. The soil that had been frozen at an extremely low temperature was hard and cold. Gu Mengmeng dug until her hands were covered in blood before she managed to dig out a small hole that was the width of 2 fingers. Compared to the light, a gust of cold wind passed through the small hole faster. Gu Mengmeng endured the discomfort in her eyes and squinted at the small hole to look outside. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9 ferocious wild beasts were fighting with Elvis. They were entangling and biting each other, and there were already 2 to 3 deep wounds on Elvis's back that exposed his bones. His flesh was flipped outwards and blood flowed out continuously. His black fur was dyed red by the blood, looking hideous and glaring. Gu Mengmeng instinctively covered her mouth to prevent herself from making a sound. She knew that Elvis wanted her to hide in the cave of the salted fish so that he could use the smell of the salted fish to cover up her scent. And in this situation, if she appeared, not only would she not be able to help Elvis, she would also cause him to fall into a more passive and dangerous situation. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists tightly and forced herself to calm down. She needed to think carefully about how she could help Elvis. At the other end of the hole, Elvis bit onto the hind leg of one of the enemies. With a forceful shake of his head, he tore the leg off the wild beast's body. Blood sprayed all over Elvis's face, making him look like a ferocious demon that crawled out from hell. The other party did not have the slightest bit of fear towards his partner's attack. Instead, he quickly replaced his position and continued to trap Elvis firmly in the middle. Chapter 236. Gu Mengmeng felt a wave of disgust. She retched twice but nothing came out. She could only squat under the small hole and panted heavily, trying to calm herself down as quickly as possible. Originally, we didn't know that your cave was here. But just when we were almost frozen to death, we heard a magical and beautiful melody. Listen, it should be the voice of a female. That person said while revealing a greedy expression. His black and red tongue licked around his mouth, then he started chewing on the leg bone that no longer had any meat left. Gu Mengmeng was shocked. Could it be that her singing attracted the enemy? Gu Mengmeng really wanted to slap herself to death. Why did she have to sing for no reason? Even if Elvis wanted to listen, she could just lie beside his ear and sing quietly. Why did she have to sing so loudly? Was it to show off her voice? Look at this, you've brought disaster upon yourself. At the same time, Elvis had already bitten off the throat of another wild beast. The head rolled to the man's feet and was kicked out of the cave mercilessly. The man nodded approvingly. Looks like we've met a tough opponent. Elvis transformed into a human, only maintaining his fangs and right hand in beast form. He had never fought like this before. This inspiration came from Lee's fox tale that he revealed when he was coaxing Gu Mengmeng. Elvis spat out the dirty blood in his mouth and said, "If you guys only want food, I can give you some meat. Together with these two idiots, it should be enough for you guys to last till the next tribe." That man was also very curious about Elvis's battle form. He sized him up for a long time before saying, "You're actually a half-orc." "Ha, looking at your moves just now, I thought you were at least a second-level beast in human form. I didn't expect you to be a half-orc, ha 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 ha, good, good." That man suddenly laughed out loud and stood up. With a lewd expression, he said, "Why don't you hand over your female and let her break off the partnership with you, then join us? Don't worry, I'm very fair as a leader. I'll return your female to you after I'm sick of playing with her. Other than the fact that you guys aren't bound by the partnership contract, everything else will be the same as now. How about it? Not bad, right?" Elvis stared coldly at the person who spoke. He was expressionless, the kind that did not have a single trace of emotion. He took a step forward and the remaining 7 wild beasts blocked him. Both parties were in a deadlock and the tense atmosphere was like the calm before the storm. Even Gu Mengmeng could clearly feel the dangerous aura emanating from Elvis. After transforming into human form, the 2 wounds on his back looked even more ferocious, forming a sharp contrast with his jade-white skin. Like a blooming poppy, it did not make him look weak at all, but instead made him look even more wild. The blood dripping down from his waist seemed to be announcing how dangerous its owner was. "If I kill him, you'll have another portion of food." Elvis stared straight at the man who claimed to be the leader and did not transform to participate in the battle. However, his words were clearly meant for the thugs surrounding him to hear. Chapter 237. The 7 wild beasts surrounding Elvis exchanged glances and slowly took half a step back. This meant that they had reached an agreement. Elvis glanced at them and nodded to express his approval. Then, he slowly walked towards the man who claimed to be the leader. That man also threw away the leg bone he was chewing halfway and stood up to stretch his neck. He was still smiling in an extremely disgusting manner. Gu Mengmeng swore that she had seen so many television dramas but she had never seen an antagonist with such a repulsive face like this fellow. Sure enough, there was a difference between a real bad guy and a fake bad guy. Interesting, interesting. The man shook his head and transformed into a huge tiger, pouncing towards Elvis with a roar. Elvis dodged the tiger's attacks sideways and at the same time, he used his sharp claws to attack the tiger's abdomen. The tiger seemed to be prepared for it. Its tail, which was as thick as an arm, curled around Elvis's arm and swung it. The half of its body that was stretched out actually stepped on the wall and spun back, blood spurting towards Elvis's face. Elvis's lips curled up and he actually smiled. The tiger knew that things were not good, but it could no longer stop. Because it was not his tail that had wrapped around Elvis's hand, but Elvis's hand that was tightly grabbing onto his tail. He actually sent his own tail into his opponent's hand. A second before the tiger got close to him, Elvis lowered his body and transformed his entire head into a wolf. He opened his mouth and used his sharp fangs to lock onto the tiger's throat. All his actions were fast, accurate and ruthless, without a single bit of sloppiness. Crack, crack. 2 consecutive sounds of bones breaking could be heard and the tiger's head drooped down in a weird position, hanging by Elvis's mouth. The murderous aura in Elvis's blue eyes had yet to fade away when he suddenly realized that there was a small hole in the entrance of the cave that he should have blocked. The eye that peeked out from behind the small hole, he recognized it. His heart froze and Elvis loosened his mouth. That tiger fell limply onto the ground. The 7 wild beasts that were his accomplices just a moment ago pounced forward and started to divide the tiger's corpse. Elvis straightened his back and said coldly, "Saint Nazir does not welcome stray beasts. Take your food and leave. Otherwise, you will become my reserve food for this winter." The 7 beasts looked at each other. The reason why this tiger was the boss was because the 7 of them couldn't beat him. However, the black wolf in front of them had easily killed him. In other words, they were absolutely no match for him. The front paws of the 7 beasts were prostrating in a submissive posture. Elvis raised his hand and flicked his fingers twice, indicating that they could scram. Only then did the 7 wild beasts hurriedly drag the corpses of their comrades that had become food out of Elvis's cave. Accompanied by the howling of the storm, the sounds of the wild beasts fighting for food gradually faded away. Elvis and Gu Meng Meng stared at each other with that piece of soil between them. It was as if time had stopped working here and they were in a state of being paused. "Elvis, you're hurt." Gu Meng Meng regained her senses first. She dug at the soil in front of her with all her might while saying, "Don't move, I'm coming over now. I'll dig through this place very quickly, don't move recklessly." Chapter 238. Gu Meng Meng wrapped her arms around Elvis's waist and felt a wave of warmth in her hands. Her eyes teared up and she said in a sobbing tone, "You're hurt, you're hurt." Elvis hugged Gu Meng Meng tightly, who was trying to break free from his embrace, so hard that he could not help but tremble. After a long while, he said in a voice that sounded like hot sand grinding against iron, "Don't leave me." Gu Meng Meng could not break free and was so anxious that she started crying. She stomped her feet and wanted to punch Elvis but was afraid of touching his wound, so she just waved her hands and said, "Are you an idiot? I'm already yours. Where else can I go? Let me go and let me see your wound." Elvis's body stiffened. He carefully held onto her shoulders and looked into her eyes. "Just now, you saw me kill that stray beast, right? Which one?" Gu Meng Meng was anxious to see the injuries on Elvis's back, but Elvis refused to let go no matter what. Gu Meng Meng was so anxious that she jumped up and down. "I saw it, I saw it, I saw all 3 of them." "You aren't afraid?" Elvis's expression was as if he was treading on thin ice, his blue eyes filled with uncertainty. Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis as if she was looking at an idiot. "If you don't kill them, they will kill us. I'm not Tripitaka, I don't have the hobby of improving the food of demons. Don't you think I'm cruel?" Elvis was surprised by Gu Meng Meng's answer. He clearly remembered how she cried when she saw others injured and bleeding on the day of her coming-of-age ceremony when Leah was guarding the tower. He knew that she did not like violence, did not like killing, did not like blood. But she had just witnessed that cruel and bloody scene with her own eyes. The moment he met her eyes through the small hole, his heart suddenly tightened. He could almost see Gu Mingming's face of disgust, and he even felt that she might leave him because of this. But she said, "If you don't let me check the wound, do you believe that Lil Miss is crueler than you?" Gu Mengmeng steeled her heart and stepped on Elvis's foot, twisting her foot with force, saying, "Let me tell you, when I get angry, even I am afraid of myself. Hurry up and let go of me. I want to check your wound." Gu Mingming's little strength was nothing to Elvis. However, his heart was so warm. Gulp. Gulp. A resurgent heartbeat came from his left chest and Elvis felt the blood that had congealed start to flow again. Hugging her tightly in his arms, he took a deep breath and said, "Xiao Meng, thank you. Thank you." With that, Elvis's body suddenly went limp and he slid off Gu Mingming's body. Gu Mengmeng wanted to catch Elvis but she did not have enough strength. The most she could do was to slow down his fall to prevent a second injury. "Elvis? Elvis, how are you? Don't scare me." Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's face but he did not react at all. What to do? What to do? Gu Mengmeng was so anxious that she was going around in circles. She should not have learned human resource management in the first place. She should have gone to a nursing school to learn nursing. Chapter 239. Gu Mengmeng nodded her head fiercely and said with a sobbing tone, "Leah, hurry and save Elvis." Leah maintained his faint smile and stood at the cave entrance without moving. After a moment of silence, he opened his mouth and said, "After all, we are love rivals. If he dies, it would be a good thing for me." "Leah!" Gu Mengmeng shouted his name with a hoarse voice. Leo was taken aback, he almost could not maintain the smile on his face. This was the first time Gu Mengmeng looked at him with such eyes and called his name with such a tone, for another male. Leah used 2 breaths' time to barely calm himself down before continuing, "So, if you want me to save him, you have to promise me 3 things. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and said, "All right, as long as you can save him, I can even promise you 300 things, not to mention 3. Leah nodded and took a step into the cave, saying, "The first condition is that I want to stay here this winter." Before Gu Mengmeng could speak, Leah continued, "Elvis needs to be taken care of, you can't possibly make me run around in this snowstorm, right?" Gu Mengmeng looked at the howling snowstorm outside the cave and nodded. "Elvis's cave is very big, it doesn't lack a place for you to sleep." Only then did Leah heave a sigh of relief. Then, he took another step inwards and said, "The second condition is that when winter ends, the snow at the entrance of the cave will naturally melt. You have to sing A Little Happiness for me every day as repayment for treating Elvis." Gu Mengmeng wanted to reject him, she knew what this song meant to both of them. Leah had already mated with Nina and she was already Elvis's woman. Was it appropriate for her to sing this song now? What was the point? But looking at Lee's "if you don't promise me, I will leave now" attitude, Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and said, "All right, I will sing." Leah took the 3rd step forward and came to Elvis's side. He slowly squatted down to the same height as Elvis and looked straight into her eyes. "The last condition, I want you to call me Daddy Leah every time you talk to me." Elvis nodded his head and said, "I want you to call me Daddy Leah." Gu Mengmeng glared at Leah and said, "You haven't taken enough advantage of me. Don't push your luck. Food, lodging, and entertainment services are provided. Our consultation fee should be considered quite a lot, right?" Lee's gaze darkened and there was a slight change in the curve of his lips. He could not help but clench his fists, but he did not dare to let Gu Mengmeng discover anything amiss. He tried his best to maintain the smile that she loved. using the calmness that she loved, to grind his heart into pieces and mark a cinnabar mole for her. He murmured softly, "Once upon a time, you and I were also we. What's the point of talking about this now? Just tell me, are you going to save him or not?" Gu Mengmeng screamed at the top of her lungs. "If you don't agree, I won't save you." Leo looked at Gu Mengmeng, not giving in at all. He wanted to know if she would agree to do something she was unwilling to do for Elvis. At that moment, Lee's emotions were also very complicated. He hoped that she would agree, but was also afraid that she would really agree. "All right, Daddy Leah, Grandpa Leah, Ancestor Leah, I beg you, save my hubby." Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis, who was covered in blood, and looked at Leah with determination. In her eyes, she could no longer find the infatuation, shyness, naivety and liking him. Aside from the topic, thank you to the QQ reading baby, Xiao Wang, for tipping 100 reading points. And thank you to the little baby from the Portrait Academy, Constellation Love XST, for giving this article a 5-star review. Then, Daily Group Expansion, for 92779273. Originally, the group could only accommodate 500 people, but because I was lazy and did not want to open a second group, I increased the capacity to 2,000. So the problem now is the lack of management personnel. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.